Well, here's some food for thought. More than 200 U.S. Special Operations Forces have moved into a new home in Afghanistan. But instead of being housed in a military facility, as they have in the past, this group was put up in a compound owned and operated by the security company formerly known as Blackwater, which then changed its name to Z and is now called Academy. The base is called Camp Integrity and is a more than 435,000 square foot forward operating base located not far from the Kabul International Airport. Now, they say the reason for this new home is simply overcrowding, that there wasn't space at existing facilities for the additional special ops forces that would be coming in. But Academy got more than $22 million, a no-bid contract, by the way, which apparently covers things like food services, pest control, information technology, and armed security services. This contract, by the way, runs through May 2015, even though most U.S. forces are supposed to be home by 2014. I want to talk more about the various implications of this with Michael O'Brien. He's the author of the book, America's Failure in Iraq, Intervention to Withdrawal. And he joins me now in studio. Hey there, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm good. Let me just ask you first. I mean, how common is this for military personnel to be housed, sort of put up by private contractors?
To the best of my knowledge, it's not common at all. It's not done. I've never heard of it. I've never heard of such a thing. You know, you're in a foreign country. You've got an American company. Well, you know, the fact of the matter is, when I was in Iraq, we had forward operating bases, but they were all operated by the U.S. government. You had contractors that provided, construction support and, the food and all the things that you listed there. But they didn't, and they might have built the bases and stuff like that, but they didn't. To the best of my knowledge, this is a base that they own it. It's their base. They probably have some kind of a land lease from the government of Afghanistan. I don't know the specifics of the deal, but I've never heard of anything. I've never heard of anything like this.
What about this aspect that it goes on, that the contract, this $22 million contract, it goes through May of 2015? I mean, do you think that tells us anything about what the future of this war with Afghanistan will look like, considering that we thought the majority of our forces would be home at the end of 2014?
Well, we're being told that all of our forces are going to be out of there by the end of 2014. That's not going to happen. I read in a recent article that there's plans of keeping about 10,000 troops over there, indefinitely. Iraq, same thing. I mean, all of our forces are not gone. There's still a lot of them are there. But there's a couple of things. First of all is, really, why is this company still in business after the Nisour Square massacre in September of 2007 in Baghdad? Why is the company still in business, number one?
Yeah, certainly this is a company known for some of its, the contractors there, shooting and killing multiple civilians.
Oh, yeah.
It's been known for stealing weapons.
Yeah.
Why
are they still in business?
Not only still in business, but still trusted by the U.S. military and paid exorbitant amounts of money by the U.S. military.
Exactly. So that's one issue, and then the other issue is we are getting into. I talk about this extensively in my book and on my website, but we're taking mercenary. This is taking mercenary to another level. It's a role reversal. We have mercenaries operating on foreign soil out of American bases or out of their own compounds and safe houses. But now it's a role reversal. We have U.S. forces occupying, being housed in facilities on a mercenary-owned base. So the tail's wagging the dog now, and the mercenary company, it's a mercenary company, it is what it is now housing U.S. forces. And the whole thing about they ran out of room and all that. Well, I mean, I've got a bridge to sell you. I mean, personally, I don't buy that.
And it's interesting, too. So the name of this compound, forward operating base, is Camp Integrity. And by the way, Michael, you'll be pleased to know, if you're interested, you can actually buy a T-shirt. There are T-shirts. We've had one up on the screen here. Camp Integrity. There it is.
Now, that is an oxymoron. Makes about as much sense as jumbo shrimp.
I mean, it is interesting. I mean, talk a little bit more. I mean, you talk talked sort of about the reputation of this company, but what's the bigger picture here in terms of, as you said, you know, the tail wagging the dog, but these two factions, which really are supposed to be kept a little more distant, not only working together but living together?
Well, there's no firewall. You know, I'm very familiar with government contracting. So first of all, you know, after the Nisour Square massacre, how come they still maintain a government contract? How come they were not debarred, as the term is, from future government contracts? Now there is no wall. There is no firewall. There's not even a pretense of a separation of contractor, you know, supplier of services to the U.S. government. It's, you know, they're almost as close to the term being in bed together as you can get. I mean, they're living together on the contractor's compound.
Yeah, and it's not just that Academy, as it's now called, gave the best deal. This was a no-bid contract, and I've got a copy of it right here.
Sole source contract.
And basically, according to the rules, you know, you have to have somebody go through and say, because this was a no-bid contract, we have to make sure that it was a fair price was offered, and you know, the deal was good. So, from what we understand, these troops started being housed there in May of 2012. Well, this contract, read to me when this was signed.
I don't know when
okay, it's
31 August of 2012.
Right, so that is 3 months after. They were
fact.
already there.
After the fact.
And so what do you think this says, this after the fact?
Well, it's nice to see that they didn't, you know, backdate it. They actually, you know, put the real date on it. But there's got to be, you know, I'm sure there's a contracting officer involved, a U.S. Army contracting officer with a warrant to sign these things, and you know, I can't explain it. I'd have to look at it.
I mean,
I'd
the
have
fact
to
that
read
it says,
it, but
you know,
it's sole source.
I determined that the costs of this government contract are fair and reasonable based on price analysis. Not so much the wording, but the fact that it was signed after the decision was already not only made, but after the consequences of the decision were in place.
And how do they know if it's a fair and reasonable thing? Did they do what's called an independent government estimate to compare that? Where's the justification that it had to be sole source or other than full and open competition? Was it an emergency? Was that the only vendor that could do that? And the other thing is, too, if they started doing it back then, in May, and then signed it in August, you know, where's the justification? It'd be interesting to see where the justification was for the need to house these soldiers in that location at that time, right away, and there wasn't anything else that could be that could satisfy that requirement. And you'd have to, you know, that would be a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request.
Right, would be an interesting thing to find out,
but,
if we actually could. Real quick, we're almost out of time. Do you have any idea, Michael, what these contractor bases are like as compared to what regular military bases are like?
Well, I lived on a FOB, like I said. I was in the international zone, formerly called the Green Zone in Baghdad. But I was on many FOBs all around the country, and I would venture to say they probably are very much the same. HESCO barrier walls, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, or on a piece of land, I should say, near the airport there in Kabul. Probably a bunch of HESCO walls, probably a bunch of T-walls. Probably didn't take much to build. And then trailers, prefab trailers with electrical and plumbing, basic plumbing.
Interesting.
And, and internet cabling.
Yeah. Okay.
Not a lot.
Michael O'Brien, the author of America's Failure in Iraq. Thanks, as always, for being here and sharing your insight.
Great. Thanks for having me.